I think Hondurans, Mexicans, Nicaraguans, El Salvadorians, Panamanians, Venezuelans, Chileans, they should all go home.
Oh, really?
If they're here illegally, yes.
But like I said before, these people have been devastated by in the past. These countries are poor.
I don't care. Go fix your own country. Don't come to our country.
Because we set up in the first place.
Hold on a second. How did we screw up El Salvador?
In the 1950s throughout the 70s, the situation in El Salvador was bad, and it was reaching a boiling point. The poor and working class Salvadorans were suffering through extreme oppression by a military dictatorship, and this military dictatorship only served the interests of the wealthy elite, which is a theme that seems to span the globe and repeats itself throughout history. There was widespread poverty, lack of land ownership, and obviously a lack of political representation. And this eventually gave rise to left-wing resistance movements such as the FMLN, the Farabundo Multinational Liberation Front. And their goal was to fight against this oppressive regime. And of course, a dictatorship will do what a dictatorship does, and they tried to squash the FMLN. And by 1979, this resistance movement escalated into a full-blown civil war, entered the United States to save the day. Captain save an oppressive dictatorship. They didn't care about the Salvadoran people being oppressed by the wealthy elite. Do you know how many countries are being oppressed right now that the United States cares nothing about? The United States got involved to ensure that the left-wing FMLN did not overthrow the Salvadoran government. You gotta remember, this was all happening during the Cold War, when all the United States cared about was fighting communism, wherever it might rear its evil head. And the United States saw the FMLN resistance as a potential communist takeover, and they couldn't allow that. So what did the United States do? How did they screw up El Salvador? Well, a conflict that had nothing to do with the United States, and that could have ended fairly quickly, possibly through negotiation, was dragged out for 12 years. For over a decade, the US funded this right-wing dictatorship and their military with billions of dollars, $2 million a day, providing weapons and trading Salvadoran death squads. And these death squads, funded and trained by the United States, committed some of the most horrific massacres that most people never heard of. Notably the El Mozote massacre, where they entered the village of El Mozote, rounded up all the men, women, and children, and brutally assaulted and killed them all, in ways that I can't even say on TikTok. Does any of this sound familiar? Because this is a standard play from the US foreign policy playbook. And after the threat of communism was eliminated, after the United States was finally satisfied, after 70,000 Salvadorans were killed, primarily civilians, after the country was destroyed, after over 1 million Salvadorans were displaced, after their infrastructure was obliterated, bridges, hospitals, roads, all destroyed, after their economy was in absolute shambles, the United States patted itself on the back, offered a few relief programs to make themselves feel better, and then they turned their back on the country.